He saved the poor alien mother, and the triplets saw him as their father. Daniel had been traveling through the galaxy for years, exploring planets that no one had ever set foot on. He loved the quiet of space, the endless stars, and the thrill of discovering something new. But this mission was different. He was sent to a remote, uncharted planet to study its ecosystem and see if life existed there. Most of his colleagues thought it would be just another boring assignment, a planet with rocks and dust. But Daniel had a feeling that something extraordinary waited for him. As his small exploration ship touched down on the rocky surface, Daniel noticed the planet was alive in ways he had not expected. The ground shimmered with soft, green, moss-like plants. Strange, colorful flowers swayed gently even though there was no wind. The sky had a faint purple tint, and two suns bathed the horizon in golden light. Daniel stepped out of his ship, feeling the soft, uneven ground beneath his boots. Everything seemed peaceful, almost magical. He started walking toward a narrow canyon that appeared in the distance. There was something strange about it, something that pulled him in like a silent whisper. As he got closer, he saw that the walls of the canyon were covered in crystals that reflected sunlight in thousands of tiny rainbows. He felt a shiver of excitement. Daniel had seen alien landscapes before, but this one was different. It had life, movement, and a story that seemed waiting to be discovered. Then he noticed a faint sound. It was soft at first, almost like a whisper, then it grew louder. Daniel froze and listened carefully. It sounded like crying, but it wasn't human crying. It was softer, higher-pitched, almost musical, yet filled with pain. His heart beat faster. Could it be an alien creature? He had to find out. He followed the sound into a narrow, hidden passage in the canyon. The rocks were jagged, and he had to be careful with every step. The sound led him to a small cave, almost hidden behind a curtain of vines. Inside, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. A creature unlike anything he had ever seen was lying on the ground. Its skin was pale blue, with soft patches of fur around the neck and arms. Its large eyes were filled with pain and fear. The creature had 3 tiny offspring huddled around it. They were weak, barely moving, and their small cries made Daniel's heart ache. The mother's body was injured, and she struggled to sit upright. Daniel immediately knew he had to help. He stepped carefully into the cave, speaking in calm, soothing tones. "It's okay, I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. The mother's eyes widened, and she took a step back, shielding the triplets with her body. Daniel could see the fear and pain, but also the instinctive love she had for her children. He took out his medical kit from his backpack. It was designed for emergencies and had basic healing tools for humans, but Daniel hoped it could help in some way. He approached slowly, keeping his hands visible. "I just want to help," he said again. The mother hesitated, then slowly allowed him to get closer. She needed help too much to refuse, even if she didn't fully trust him. Daniel carefully cleaned the mother's injuries with a gentle touch, trying not to hurt her more. She flinched at first, but slowly stayed still as he worked. The triplets watched silently, their tiny eyes wide with curiosity. They were small, round, and covered in soft, downy fur. Each one was a different shade of blue, almost like a set of living gemstones. One of them reached a tiny hand toward Daniel, then quickly pulled it back. As he worked, Daniel realized how fragile they were. The mother's injuries were old enough that she could not move well, but not so severe that they couldn't heal. Daniel gave her a basic healing solution, speaking softly to keep her calm. She blinked slowly and let him continue, almost as if she understood that he meant no harm. The triplets began to move closer, their curiosity overcoming fear. One crawled toward him, small and unsteady. Daniel gently extended a hand, letting it touch his finger. The tiny creature trembled, but then slowly pressed its hand against him. He smiled, feeling an unexpected warmth in his heart. The bond was beginning. Daniel knew he couldn't leave them here. The canyon was too dangerous, and the mother was too weak. If he returned to his ship, the family might not survive. He looked at the mother and said softly, "I think you need me. I'll stay and help you." The mother's large eyes looked into his, and for the first time there was a hint of trust. She gave a small nod, just enough to show she accepted his help. He carefully lifted the mother, supporting her injured body. The triplets followed, crawling behind her, wobbling on their tiny legs. Daniel made sure not to move too fast, careful not to scare them. As they walked back toward his ship, the triplets occasionally glanced up at him, their eyes wide and alert. They seemed to be studying him, learning if he could be trusted. Once inside his ship, Daniel prepared a small area with soft mats and blankets for the family. He gave the mother water and a simple nutritional paste designed for fragile creatures. The triplets watched everything, occasionally reaching for the food, but not daring to touch it yet. Daniel placed the food near them but left them space. He understood that trust could not be forced. He spent the next few hours observing the family. The mother started to eat slowly, occasionally glancing at Daniel. The triplets began to mimic her movements, nibbling carefully at the food. Daniel felt a sense of pride and relief. He had saved them, and they had begun to accept him. Night came, and the planet's two suns dipped below the horizon. The cave shimmered in the soft glow of bioluminescent plants. Daniel watched as the triplets finally crawled toward the mother, snuggling against her for warmth. The mother looked at Daniel and gave a soft, melodic sound, almost like a thank you. He smiled and whispered, "You're safe now. I'll keep you safe." Daniel realized that he had never felt this kind of responsibility before. The bond was immediate and deep. These small alien beings had become more than just a mission objective. They were a family in need, and he was the only one who could protect them. He spent the next days caring for them, learning their habits and communication. The triplets were playful, curious, and intelligent. They explored his ship cautiously, touching buttons and screens with tiny hands. Daniel taught them simple gestures, like reaching for food or holding hands with the mother. Every small success made him smile. The mother gradually regained strength. She started moving more confidently and even helped guide the triplets in their tiny explorations. Daniel and the mother communicated through simple gestures and sounds. He learned to understand her moods, and she learned to trust him. Together, they formed a silent understanding. He would protect them, and they would rely on him. One evening, as Daniel watched the triplets play, he realized something extraordinary. They looked at him differently now. No longer just a human stranger, he could feel their recognition, a sense of trust and even affection. One of the triplets crawled toward him and pressed its tiny head against his chest. He held it gently, feeling a warmth he had never felt before. The bond was growing stronger every day. Daniel knew that this was just the beginning. The planet was full of dangers, and they had to survive together. But for the first time, he felt that he had a purpose beyond exploration and discovery. He had a family to care for, and the connection was real. As he sat watching the mother and her triplets sleep safely, Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This mission had started as a simple exploration, but now it had become a story of trust, compassion, and connection. He whispered softly, "We'll get through this together, I promise." In that quiet moment under the purple sky and the light of two suns, Daniel realized something important. Life, no matter how different, was worth protecting. And love, in its simplest form, could grow even between the most unlikely beings. The alien mother and her triplets had found a protector, and Daniel had found something he never expected, a family. From that moment on, his mission was no longer just about exploration. It was about survival, trust, and building a bond that could withstand any challenge. And he knew, deep in his heart, that the triplets already saw him not just as a rescuer, but as someone who could be like a father to them. The stars outside his ship twinkled gently as he closed his eyes for the night, feeling the gentle breaths of the triplets and the mother beside him. He knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now there was peace and the beginnings of a connection that would change all of their lives forever. The next morning, the alien family woke to the soft hum of Daniel's ship. Light streamed through the transparent walls, making the cave-like interior glow with a warm, golden color. The mother stirred first, stretching her limbs carefully. Her three triplets were nestled beside her, slowly waking and blinking at the new day. Daniel was already awake, watching them quietly from a small corner. He smiled softly. Seeing them safe and alive filled him with a happiness he could hardly explain. He decided to start the day by preparing a simple breakfast. He brought out the soft nutrient paste for the mother and created a tiny portion for the triplets. One of them reached for the food instinctively, but then hesitated, looking up at the mother for guidance. The mother made a small humming sound and encouraged them gently. Slowly, they tasted it. Daniel watched carefully, making sure each of them got enough to eat. The triplets were tiny, delicate, and clumsy, but they moved with surprising intelligence, learning quickly from the mother and from him. After breakfast, Daniel thought it was time to let the triplets explore a little. The ship had a small, enclosed area he had set up as a play zone. There were soft mats, low climbing structures, and small toys he had improvised using materials from the ship. The mother watched nervously at first, but when she saw Daniel kneeling beside the triplets, showing them how to climb and play safely, she began to relax. She even tried a few steps herself, guiding the triplets with careful gestures and soft sounds. The triplets' curiosity grew quickly. They crawled over every surface, touching and inspecting everything in their tiny hands. One of them found a small mirror Daniel had left and stared at its reflection, fascinated. Daniel laughed quietly. "That's you," he said, pointing at the mirror and then to the triplet. The little one tilted its head and made a soft noise, almost like it was responding. Daniel's heart swelled. Each small reaction, each tiny sound, felt like a conversation, even though he could not understand it fully. Over the next few hours, Daniel focused on building trust and teaching the triplets simple habits. He showed them how to drink safely from small containers, how to reach for food, and how to stay close to the mother when exploring. They learned quickly, their little eyes following his every movement. The mother watched him closely, gradually showing more signs of trust. Sometimes she would hum a soft melody, and Daniel tried to hum back. The sound seemed to calm both the mother and the triplets. It was as if a silent language was forming between them. Daniel also noticed how the triplets reacted to him when he moved around the ship. They would crawl toward him, sometimes hesitating for a moment, but eventually reaching him and touching his hands or arms. He learned to respond gently, letting them explore without fear. The mother, seeing this, seemed to understand that Daniel's intentions were kind and protective. Each day, their trust grew stronger, and Daniel felt a deeper connection forming. As the day went on, Daniel realized he needed to think about the future. The planet, though beautiful, was unpredictable. There could be storms, wild creatures, or other dangers. He had to create a safe place for the family to live. Using materials from his ship and nearby resources, he started building a more permanent shelter within the canyon. He carefully chose a location that was hidden from sight but had easy access to sunlight and water. The mother and triplets followed him cautiously, sometimes holding onto his hands or touching his legs for reassurance. While working on the shelter, Daniel talked to the mother softly. "I want you and the triplets to be safe," he said. The mother responded with gentle hums and soft touches, almost like she was thanking him. Daniel smiled. Words were not necessary. Actions spoke louder, and every day he showed them care, patience, and understanding. By mid-afternoon, the basic structure of the shelter was ready. It had soft bedding for the triplets, a slightly raised platform for the mother to rest, and a small area where Daniel could prepare food and supplies. The triplets immediately began exploring, crawling over the mats and testing the soft barriers. Daniel laughed quietly, careful not to startle them. The mother watched, her eyes shining with relief. She had never had such a safe place before. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Daniel noticed something remarkable. The triplets were beginning to respond to his presence in ways he had not expected. One of them, who had been the shyest, crawled directly to him, pressing its tiny body against his leg. Another climbed onto his knee, reaching up for his hands. Daniel's heart warmed. He realized that the triplets were starting to see him as more than just a helper. They were beginning to view him as a protector, a guardian, and maybe even something like a father figure. The mother seemed to notice the change, too. She stayed close but no longer blocked Daniel from interacting with the triplets. Instead, she watched him carefully, as if observing how he could care for her children. Daniel felt a sense of responsibility unlike anything he had ever known. These tiny beings depended on him entirely, and he could not let them down. That night, as the two suns disappeared below the horizon and the sky turned a deep violet, Daniel prepared a warm, safe space for the family to sleep. He dimmed the lights in the ship, leaving only a soft glow that made the area comfortable and calming. The mother and triplets settled into the bedding he had prepared, and Daniel sat quietly beside them. He watched the triplets' tiny breaths, feeling a strange sense of peace. He thought about how fragile and special life was. These creatures were so different from humans, yet their needs were similar: safety, food, warmth, and love. Daniel realized that no matter how small or strange a being was, caring for them could create a powerful bond. And that bond was growing every day between him and this tiny alien family. The next few days passed in a rhythm of learning, playing, and exploring. Daniel taught the triplets to recognize his voice, to follow simple instructions, and to respond to gentle gestures. The mother guided him in caring for their unique biology, showing him how to feed the triplets properly and how to keep them healthy. Each day brought new discoveries and challenges, but Daniel approached them with patience and care. One afternoon, Daniel noticed that the triplets were becoming more confident. They climbed small platforms he had built, explored corners of the shelter, and even made soft sounds that sounded like laughter. The mother joined them in play, her movements graceful and protective. Daniel watched them, amazed at how quickly the tiny family adapted to their new environment. He felt proud and grateful that he could be a part of this transformation. Daniel also took time to teach himself more about the planet and its resources. He collected edible plants, clean water, and safe materials for building. He wanted to ensure that the family could survive here long-term if needed. The mother watched him work and occasionally offered guidance through soft gestures. They developed a silent teamwork, each understanding the other without words. As the days passed, the bond between Daniel and the triplets grew even stronger. One evening, as he gently held one of the tiny creatures in his hands, he felt it snuggle against him. The triplet's soft body pressed against his chest, and Daniel realized something profound. These creatures already trusted him completely. They were small, but their hearts were full, and they had chosen him as their guardian. The mother seemed to notice the change as well. She stayed close to Daniel during the night, her soft hums signaling a mix of gratitude and trust. Daniel understood that this trust was fragile and precious. He had to be careful, patient, and kind at all times. It was not just about survival anymore. It was about creating a family, a bond that could last. During the following week, Daniel continued to explore the surrounding canyon, bringing back small resources and treasures for the triplets. Tiny fruits, soft rocks, and colorful leaves became toys and learning tools. He showed the triplets how to touch, smell, and recognize these new objects. The triplets were fascinated, their curiosity boundless. Every discovery was a small adventure, and Daniel shared in their joy. The mother started to interact more openly with Daniel. She would come closer, letting him touch her to check her health. She made soft sounds of approval when he did something helpful, and Daniel responded with gentle words and smiles. It was a silent but powerful communication, and he felt a deep connection forming. By the end of the second week, Daniel realized that the triplets were no longer afraid of him. They reached for him, followed him around the shelter, and even slept close to him without hesitation. The mother stayed nearby, keeping a watchful eye, but her fear had faded. She seemed to understand that Daniel was truly there to care for them, and she trusted him completely. One evening, as the family sat together watching the soft glow of the two suns set behind the canyon walls, Daniel felt a strong emotion he had never felt before. He was no longer just an explorer or a rescuer. He was part of this family. The triplets looked at him with curiosity and trust, and the mother's gentle hums made him feel accepted and valued. He realized that he had found something more important than any discovery he could make in the galaxy: love, trust, and family. From that day on, Daniel committed himself fully to caring for the alien mother and her triplets. He knew that challenges would come, but he also knew that together they could face anything. The bond they had created was strong, and each day brought new moments of joy, learning, and connection. The tiny alien family had found a protector, and Daniel had found a purpose far beyond exploration. He had become their guardian, their friend, and perhaps, in the eyes of the triplets, their father. And in the quiet of that alien canyon, under the glow of two suns, a new family began to grow, filled with trust, love, and hope. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel had settled into a routine with the alien mother and her triplets. The canyon that once seemed lonely and quiet now felt alive with small laughter, soft hums, and tiny footsteps. Daniel had grown close to the family, learning their habits, gestures, and even the quiet melodies the mother sang to calm her children. Every morning, the triplets would crawl to him first, pressing their tiny hands against his chest, their soft eyes bright with trust. Daniel had begun to explore further beyond the canyon to gather resources and study the planet. He collected soft moss for bedding, small fruits that were safe for the triplets, and clean water from hidden streams. Each trip into the wilderness was carefully planned. He wanted to bring back gifts and discoveries for the family, but also ensure he could return safely. The mother sometimes accompanied him, guiding him past tricky areas, showing where the ground was stable and where plants were safe to touch. One day, as Daniel was examining a cluster of shimmering flowers that grew near the canyon entrance, he noticed something unusual. Tiny footprints, unlike any he had seen before, appeared in the soft soil nearby. They were small, light, and seemed to move in a pattern. Daniel crouched down, examining them closely. He realized the footprints were from creatures similar to the mother and her triplets, but older, larger, and stronger. His heart beat faster. This meant the planet might have more of their species, but it also meant the family could be in danger. Daniel returned to the shelter quickly, keeping a careful eye on the surroundings. The mother and triplets were waiting, and the triplets crawled toward him immediately. He carefully explained in his softest tones that they needed to stay inside for safety. The mother understood immediately, her eyes narrowing slightly with concern. Daniel knew that the planet was beautiful, but it was also unpredictable. There could be creatures, environmental changes, or other risks that he had not yet seen. He had to be ready. That evening, as the two sons dipped behind the canyon walls, Daniel prepared the shelter more thoroughly. He reinforced the bedding areas, set up soft barriers around the triplets' play zone, and placed extra food and water in safe spots. The mother helped him, guiding his hands when he was unsure how to adjust the barriers for their comfort. The triplets watched curiously, occasionally crawling to Daniel to touch his hand or smile. Daniel decided it was time to teach the triplets how to stay safe. He showed them how to stay close to the mother, how to crawl to a hidden corner if they felt unsure, and how to recognize his voice as a signal of safety. The mother reinforced the lessons, softly humming to encourage them. The triplets were quick learners, their small eyes bright and alert. Daniel realized that they were not just playful and curious, they were clever and observant. Several days later, Daniel returned from gathering supplies to find the mother looking restless. She moved in small circles, her large eyes scanning the canyon's entrance. The triplets followed her movements, mimicking her concern. Daniel knelt down and spoke gently. "What is it?" "Did you notice something?" The mother made a series of soft hums, pointing with her hand toward the canyon. Daniel stood, peering into the distance. There, at the edge of the canyon, were faint shapes moving slowly through the rocks. Daniel's heart quickened. He could see that the shapes were small creatures, no bigger than the mother, but more distant and cautious. It was clear they were observing the shelter. He quickly realized that the family had been noticed. The mother's soft hums indicated worry, and she gently guided the triplets closer to Daniel. He understood her concern. These creatures might not be dangerous, but their presence could create tension or fear. He needed to keep the family calm and safe. Over the next few hours, Daniel watched carefully. The distant creatures moved slowly, sometimes disappearing behind rocks, only to return moments later. He realized that they were curious but cautious. Daniel knew that any sudden movement could alarm them or frighten the triplets. He decided to stay calm, showing no fear and keeping his voice gentle. The mother seemed to understand and guided the triplets to remain calm, humming softly to reassure them. Daniel decided to approach the distant creatures slowly. He brought a small tray of food, fruit, and moss gathered from the nearby streams. Holding it carefully, he stepped into the open, speaking softly. The creatures paused and observed him. The mother stayed close, protecting the triplets, and Daniel moved slowly, placing the tray near the edge of the rocks. The creatures approached cautiously, sniffed the food, and retreated again. Daniel remained patient, keeping his movements slow and calm. Over several days, this process continued. Daniel left small offerings for the creatures, speaking softly and showing that he meant no harm. The mother and triplets observed everything carefully, learning from Daniel's calm behavior. Gradually, the distant creatures approached more confidently, recognizing that Daniel and the family posed no threat. They began to interact with small gestures, touching the food and observing the shelter. One day, one of the distant creatures, slightly larger than the triplets, approached the family directly. The mother stepped forward cautiously but allowed the creature to approach. It sniffed the triplets gently and made a soft sound. Daniel knelt down, speaking gently, and extended a hand. The creature hesitated, then pressed its hand against his. The triplets watched in fascination, and the mother gave a low hum of approval. Daniel realized that trust could extend beyond just his family, that the bond he was creating could reach others as well. As the days passed, Daniel worked to ensure the shelter and surrounding area were secure and comfortable. He taught the triplets simple ways to explore safely, showing them how to crawl carefully, observe their surroundings, and respond to signals from him or the mother. The triplets were quick learners, often surprising Daniel with their cleverness and curiosity. The mother continued to guide them, her trust in Daniel growing with each passing day. During one calm evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Daniel sat with the family outside the shelter. The mother and triplets nestled close to him, and he held them gently. He thought about how far they had come, from frightened, fragile beings to a small family learning to live safely and happily. The distant creatures had begun to integrate slowly, observing and learning, but the bond between Daniel and the triplets had strengthened the most. Daniel realized that this bond was built not only on care and protection, but also on understanding and patience. Every day, he had listened to the mother's soft hums, observed the triplets' tiny gestures, and responded with gentle actions. Each small moment of trust had grown into a relationship that was deep and meaningful. He understood that family was not only about biology. It was about connection, care, and shared experiences. One morning, as the triplets played near the edge of the shelter, Daniel noticed one of them attempting a small leap toward a platform. The mother was nearby, softly encouraging it, but Daniel moved closer to ensure safety. The triplet wobbled, hesitated, and then jumped successfully onto the platform. Daniel clapped softly, praising the small achievement. The triplet squealed in delight, and the mother gave a soft hum of approval. Daniel felt a sense of pride. These tiny beings were growing stronger, learning, and thriving. The distant creatures began to explore the area more confidently. They approached the shelter slowly, occasionally making small, gentle sounds. Daniel and the mother encouraged the triplets to remain calm and curious. Over time, the group began to form a peaceful coexistence, each learning to trust the others. Daniel realized that patience, understanding, and consistency were the keys to building trust and harmony. Weeks passed, and Daniel continued his work with unwavering dedication. He explored new areas for resources, ensured the shelter remained safe, and spent hours teaching the triplets about the world around them. He introduced them to new textures, scents, and objects. The mother guided them in learning how to interact with these safely. Each day was filled with small lessons, playful moments, and growing trust. One quiet evening, as Daniel sat with the family under the soft glow of the twin suns, he reflected on the journey so far. He thought about how he had come to this planet as an explorer, expecting to study life from a distance, yet he had become part of a living, breathing family. The triplets' tiny hands reached for him, their soft eyes filled with trust and affection. The mother hummed a soft melody, and Daniel realized that he was no longer just a visitor. He was a protector, a guardian, and a father figure in their lives. He understood that challenges would continue to come, that life on this planet was unpredictable, but the bond he shared with the alien family was strong enough to face anything. Trust, patience, and care had transformed fear into love, fragility into confidence, and strangers into family. Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had found something he had never expected, a purpose beyond exploration, a connection beyond words, and a family that looked to him for protection and guidance. From that day on, Daniel committed fully to nurturing, teaching, and protecting the family. The mother and triplets had become a part of his life in a way that nothing else could replace. Together, they would continue to explore the planet, learn from each other, and grow stronger as a family. And in the quiet moments, as the sun set and the stars appeared, Daniel felt the profound truth. Love and trust could create bonds stronger than fear, and family could be found in the most unexpected places. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's life had completely changed. What had started as an exploration mission had become a story of care, learning, and love. The alien mother and her triplets were no longer fragile beings who had needed protection. They were becoming a small, thriving family, and Daniel was at the center of it all. Each morning, Daniel woke to the soft sounds of the triplets moving in their bedding. They made small noises as they stretched and crawled around, their tiny limbs moving quickly with energy and curiosity. The mother was always nearby, watching them closely, humming soft melodies that seemed to encourage them and make the little creatures feel safe. Daniel would smile as he reached down to greet them, their tiny hands immediately pressing against his chest or wrapping around his fingers. The bond between them had grown so strong that it was impossible to imagine life on the planet without this little family. Daniel decided to make each day an opportunity for learning and growth. He started teaching the triplets simple skills: how to recognize safe objects, how to respond to his voice, and even how to mimic some of the sounds he made. At first, the tiny creatures would wobble and make soft noises, trying to imitate him. Daniel laughed quietly, encouraging them. Each success, no matter how small, was a victory. One of the triplets learned to respond to his name, and when Daniel called softly, it would crawl eagerly toward him, its small eyes shining with recognition and joy. The mother was equally involved in the teaching. She would show the triplets how to move safely across the shelter, how to reach for food without spilling it, and how to stay close to both Daniel and her for comfort. The family routines became synchronized in a beautiful rhythm. Daniel would prepare food, guide the triplets in play, and check the shelter for safety, while the mother ensured the triplets were learning and thriving. Together, they created a household that was both nurturing and lively. Daniel also spent time introducing the triplets to the beauty of the planet. He would carry them to areas filled with soft moss, colorful flowers, and shallow streams. He allowed them to touch new textures, feel the water, and watch the way light reflected off crystal formations in the canyon. The triplets were fascinated. They made soft, delighted noises and sometimes reached toward Daniel's face, as if sharing the wonder of discovery with him. The mother observed closely, her hums conveying approval and gentle guidance. One day, Daniel decided it was time to teach the triplets a small game. He took a soft ball made from moss and showed them how to roll it gently across the mats. At first, the triplets hesitated, unsure how to push it. But with patience and encouragement, they began rolling it toward him. Daniel would gently catch it and roll it back. The game became a favorite activity. The triplets would squeal and babble excitedly whenever they saw the ball, and the mother would sit nearby, watching with amusement and pride. Through these small daily routines, the bond between Daniel and the triplets grew even stronger. The tiny creatures began seeking him out, crawling to him whenever he entered the shelter and snuggling close during rest times. Daniel felt a warmth that he had never experienced before. This was no longer just care or protection, it was love in its purest form. He felt needed, trusted, and accepted, and in return, he gave his full attention, patience, and affection to the family. The mother began to show more open trust toward Daniel as well. She would come closer while he worked, allowing him to help her with simple tasks such as feeding the triplets or adjusting their bedding. She communicated with him through soft sounds, gestures, and glances. Daniel had learned to recognize these signs, understanding when she needed assistance or reassurance. The silent communication between them had become natural, a language built from patience, observation, and care. One afternoon, Daniel took the triplets on a small adventure outside the immediate shelter area. The mother followed closely, keeping them safe while allowing them to explore. Daniel had chosen a spot near a shallow, sparkling stream, where the triplets could feel the cool water on their tiny hands. They were cautious at first, but encouraged by both Daniel and their mother, they began splashing gently, laughing in small, delighted noises. Daniel joined in, letting the water drip from his hands, showing them it was safe and fun. The mother hummed a soft, melodic tune as she observed, guiding the triplets to be careful and stay close. Daniel realized how much this small daily adventure meant to them. It wasn't just about play. It was about confidence, trust, and learning to interact with the world safely. The triplets began to experiment, stepping carefully on stones, feeling the moss under their feet, and even making soft sounds that Daniel began to recognize as laughter. As the suns began to set, painting the sky in warm shades of pink and gold, Daniel carried the triplets back to the shelter. The mother followed, walking carefully but with a sense of ease and trust that hadn't been there when they first arrived. Inside, Daniel prepared a warm meal, ensuring that both the mother and triplets were fed properly. The triplets ate quickly, occasionally pausing to look up at Daniel, their eyes full of trust and affection. The mother hummed softly, her gaze steady and approving. Evenings were a special time for the family. Daniel would sit with the triplets in his lap while the mother rested nearby. He would tell stories, describe the planet's wonders, and hum gentle melodies that the mother often joined. The tiny creatures would reach up to him, pressing against his chest, their soft voices mixing with the mother's hums. It was a quiet, beautiful ritual that created a sense of peace, love, and unity. Daniel also began to notice how the triplets were learning from each other. They would mimic gestures, repeat sounds, and sometimes play small games together. The mother would guide them, encouraging cooperation, patience, and gentle behavior. Daniel marveled at how quickly they were growing, both in confidence and in understanding. Each day brought new achievements, and each success, no matter how small, strengthened the bond of the family. One morning, Daniel decided to teach the triplets something new, recognizing the difference between safe and unsafe areas in the shelter. He set up soft barriers and gently guided them to explore within the safe zones. He showed them how to climb small platforms and how to move carefully around the edges. The mother supported him, ensuring that the triplets remained calm and attentive. By the end of the day, the triplets were moving confidently, following both Daniel and their mother with ease and curiosity. Daniel began to feel a profound sense of purpose. He had never imagined that his journey as an explorer would lead him to a family that depended on him entirely. The triplets, tiny hands reaching for him, the mother's soft hums of approval, and the shared moments of discovery and play had created a connection stronger than anything he had experienced before. He was no longer just a visitor or protector. He was an integral part of their lives. Over time, Daniel also realized the importance of routine and consistency. He ensured that meals, playtime, learning activities, and rest were structured in a way that provided stability for the family. The triplets thrived in this environment, growing more confident and independent while remaining closely bonded to both Daniel and their mother. Each small achievement, each step forward, was celebrated with gentle praise, hums, and soft laughter. During one special evening, Daniel decided to teach the triplets a gentle form of communication using hand gestures and soft sounds. He showed them how to indicate when they were hungry, tired, or curious. The mother encouraged the lessons, helping the triplets mimic his gestures and respond to his prompts. By the end of the week, the triplets were responding in simple ways, signaling their needs clearly and interacting with both Daniel and their mother with confidence. As the sun set and the canyon glowed in warm twilight, Daniel sat with the family outside the shelter. The mother rested nearby and the triplets snuggled against him. He watched them quietly, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not only saved them, but had also helped them grow, learn, and thrive. The connection they shared was unbreakable. He realized that love, patience, and trust could overcome fear, fragility, and uncertainty. Days turned into weeks, and the small alien family had created a rhythm of life that was harmonious and full of joy. Daniel's presence had become central to this rhythm. The triplets looked to him for guidance, comfort, and love, and the mother relied on him as a partner in care. Together, they had created a family, a home, and a bond that was stronger than fear or uncertainty. Daniel knew challenges would continue to come, but the trust, love, and understanding that had grown between them would help them face anything. The bond of this small family was not based solely on survival. It was based on care, patience, play, and shared experiences. Daniel felt proud, happy, and fulfilled. The alien mother, the triplets, and he had found something rare and beautiful, a family built on trust, love, and connection. As night fell, Daniel reflected quietly. He had come to this planet to explore, to study, and to discover, but he had found something far more valuable, a family that looked to him for protection, guidance, and love. He whispered softly, "We'll continue to grow together. We'll face everything as a family." The triplets pressed close to him, and the mother hummed softly in response. In that moment, Daniel knew that this bond would last, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The family sat together under the stars, peaceful, safe, and connected. Daniel felt a warmth and joy that he had never imagined. His journey had led him to a new purpose, to nurture, protect, and love this small, extraordinary family. And in return, the alien mother and her triplets had given him a gift beyond words: trust, affection, and the joy of being part of something bigger than himself, a family.